Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I'm very happy to be with all of you today from, of course, the other side of the world. I'm also at an elevation of over 2,000 meters, so I'm glad we can connect across the cosmic spaces. I have done a lot of work with Tantra, and I've done a number of books there. We don't always mention that. Books on Dashamahavidya, Inner Tantric Yoga, Shiva, Vedic Yoga. So these various studies I've done, and I like to connect everything back to Vedas and Rig Veda. So the topic that I am addressing is the Vedic basis of Tantra. Unfortunately, as most of you know, most of these studies of Veda, Tantra, Yoga, etc., that have come out of the West are distortions. There have been a few good scholars here and there. There's been many wonderful traditional scholars. And our work is based upon the teachings of Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni, who is the chief disciple of Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi. And he was also probably the greatest modern Sanskrit writer and perhaps Tantric teacher. His prime text, Uma Sahasram, has 1,000 verses in 40 chapters in praise of Devi. Each chapter is written in a different Sanskrit meter, which is, of course, in itself a great accomplishment. And through hymns and his teachings, we have studied Dasha Mahavidya, Shri Vidya, many mantric traditions, and also Vedic connections to these mantric traditions of Tantra. Of course, that is a very vast subject, but I want to cover a few important points. The other point is very simple, is to go back to the teachings of Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara is, of course, regarded as the main proponent of Vedanta, particularly in the Advaitic form, and representing, you might say, Veda in a certain perspective. Now, also, his Saundarya Lahari is the prime book on Tantra. So there was never this division between Tantra and Devi, Sadhana, and Advaita Vedanta. As many of you know, all the main Shankara Peeths have their special form of Devi. For example, Kanchi Kamakshi in Kanchipuram, Sharada Ma in Sringeri, and the different forms throughout. Besides Saundarya Lahari, he has Ananda Lahari and many wonderful hymns to Tripura Sundari. So what I would like to do is kind of give a few key factors involved. Now, a lot of Tantra is also connected to Shiva. Shiva Mahadev, we know the wonderful work that Narendra Modi has done for Varanasi, now for Mahakal, also Kedarnath, and all of that. And there are even many who say, oh, Shiva is not a Vedic god, or Tantra is not Vedic. So we're going to go into this and explore this. The other factor I want to look into is the connection or understanding of Tantra, Mantra, Veda and Tantra, and also chakras and the subtle body. Now, Shiva is the one of them arises from the Vedic text. Of course, the Rudra is in the Yajurveda, and it is the key ancient text for the worship of Shiva, and it is, of course, commonly used also today. Shiva has many names. In Vedas, he's more often called Rudra, and we also have the 8 names of Shiva. Shiva is not one of them, but it includes Bhava, Sharva, Pashupati, Ishana, Mahadev, and so forth. So we can't reduce Shiva to a name. In Rig Veda, Rudra has not as many hymns as Indra, but is a prominent deity, along with Soma. Rudra is the fierce form of Shiva, and Soma is the soft form, the Shankara form of Shiva. So those are there in the Vedas also. And Rudra is also commonly honored as Agni. So let us look into the basic Vedic teachings. And in the Vedic teachings, we have the prime deities of Agni, Soma, fire, and Soma, the nectar. And in the Rudram, we hear Shiva said to be Agni Somatmakam Jagat. He is the universe made up of Agni and Soma. So Shiva is Agni and Soma, which are also fire and the moon. Now, Shiva also has three eyes, Trinayana, and these are Agni, Soma, and Surya, sun, fire, sun, and moon. Now, going into the Vedic text, we find these three primary devatas. Agni, which is, of course, the fire form. All the Shaivites and Tantrics worship Agni and honor Agni in various levels. Surya as the sun, the Adityas, and Soma, the whole ninth mandala of the Rig Veda. And then the fourth main deity in the Rig Veda is Indra, who is also connected to Vayu and Vidyut. Now, Ganapati Muni also made an important correlation between Indra and Shiva. And in this regard, forget the Puranic Indra. That is the later king of the gods. Go back to Indra in Rig Veda and Indra in Upanishads. In Upanishads, in Taittiriya, Indra is Chandasam Vrishabha Vishwarupa. He is the bull of the chants who has the universal form. And that, of course, is Omkara. Indra is worshipped as Omkara in Upanishads. Shiva is also is Omkara. Difference between the two is very simple, as Ganapati Muni shows. Indra represents the Vidyut, or the lightning form of the cosmic principle, Om, Atma, Purusha, and Shiva is the thunder, the sound. And these, of course, always go together. So Shiva also has the bull, he is also Omkara. And Shiva is also, like Indra, connected to Vayu. And Shiva, like Indra, is the Mahadev, whereas Indra is the Devaraj, also the king of the Devas. Both have a wife named Shakti, and both have the connection also with the inner seeing and knowing. In the Aitareya Upanishad, Indra is said to be the Drashta, the seer, the Purusha. Indra enters the human body at the Simanta, the point at the top of the head. And then he enters into the point at the back of the mouth, the soft palate, or the Indrayoni, which also is the place of the Kechari mudra. And he also descends into the heart. So Indra is Purusha, Drashta, Atma, also, just as Shiva is as well. So there is a continuity between the two. There are many other complicated connections, but these need greater exploration. And then looking into this connection, we see that these are essentially the same basic energy, Indra, Shiva. Indra also means Ishwara in the Vedas, and Shiva is Maheshwara and Parameshwara. And again, both are the Lord of the mantra. Now, as we said, the three basic deities, Agni, Surya and Soma in the Vedas, and also Indra. Indra is the Vidyut, or the lightning form. And of course, Shiva is the thunder, or the sound form, the nada form. And it's also interesting that Indra's the lord of the Maruts and the Rudras, which are also connected to the Rudra and the Shiva energy. Now, let's look at these energies on additional subtle levels. What is Agni? Agni is not just simply fire. There are many forms of Agni. I'll list the main ones quickly. We have the Jatar Agni, or the digestive fire. We also have the Prana Agni, which is behind the breath and the prana. We also have Vak as Agni, Vak Shakti, and Vak, of course, Agni connected to the throat. We have the eye as Agni. We have the Buddhi as Agni. And we also have Chidagni and the power of tapas. And then finally, we also have Brahmagni, which many of you chant for the eating of food, but Brahmagni is also Sat. And Tantra is always connected to Chidagni and also to Chit-Shakti, fire of consciousness, and also to the Shakti of consciousness, as well as to the Chid Akasha. Now, Agni has a special connection also to Devi, or Shakti. Some people say, oh, Vedas don't have Devi, they don't have Shakti, and all of that comes later. And Vedas don't have Kundalini, but what is Kundalini is Vakshakti. Vakshakti is also Agni. Durga takes her birth from Agni in the Durga Sukta. She's also born of tapas, which is the power of Agni. So Kundalini Shakti is Agni in the root chakra. Agni dwells in the earth, or the Muladhara. It is also Agni as Vak, or the power of speech. Vedas are also Veda Mata, Mother Veda, and they also then connect to the Shakti principle, as Ganapati Muni says, that what is Chit Shakti at a cosmic level is Kundalini Shakti at an individual level, which is the Shakti of the Jivatman overall. Now, let us go to the Tantric Yoga. In Tantric Yoga, we have 7 chakras, but the 7 chakras of the Sukshma Sharira, the subtle body, are divided into 3 khandas, or sections. And the first khanda is Agni khanda, and it consists of these 3 lower chakras of the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, and Manipura, which are all connected. Muladhara is like the foundation, or the basis of the Agni. Swadhisthana is said to be the flame, and Manipura is said to be the light. Here we're talking about, again, the Tantric Yoga, although we can find these same concepts and mantras scattered throughout the Vedic text, particularly in the hymns to Agni overall. Now, the second khanda is called the Surya khanda, or the sun, and it consists of the Manipura, the navel chakra, as the outer line of the sun, the heart, Hridaya, as the core of the sun, and the throat, Vishuddha, as the light of the sun. But the heart is the central place, Hridaya, of the sun, and the sun has the twofold meaning as Atman and Prana, which are closely connected, and sometimes also another meaning as the eye. or the seeing power. So this is the second khandha in the Tantra, and it's also often connected to Vayu, which is, of course, Prana, as well as Atma. And the third khandha is the Vishuddha, the throat, which is the descending light of the moon, the Agni chakra, which is the contemplative power, and the Sahasrar, the Soma, which is said to be the moon. So in Tantric thought, Kundalini is said to be Agni, and the crown chakra, the Sahasrar, is said to be Soma. The Tantric yoga is the ascent of the Agni, Kundalini Shakti, and the descent of the Amrit, or the Soma, Agni Somatmakam Jagat, as the fire, the flame of consciousness, Chidagni, arises. So too, the immortal nectar of the Soma descends, which is Samadhi, and which also opens up all the nadis and gives us the Ananda. So the Vedic drinking of the Soma is the drinking of the nectar of the Sahasrar, which is the inner place of the moon, which is also the liberated mind. So in other words, we can see this threefold orientation of the Vedas in the Tantric yoga. And again, we can connect the Surya principle through the Vayu principle also to Indra and Shiva. And Indra is often said to be a Surya. He is also Vayu, Vata, and Vidyut. And of course, then we could say the three deities of the Vedas, Agni, Vayu, I should say Agni, Surya, Soma, and connecting Surya and Vayu. These are also the three factors of Shiva, the three eyes of Shiva. And we can also say the Vayu, the Vidyut, is his Shakti, or is his energy form, and the mantra, the Omkara, is his form. So these are all deeply connected in mantra, in sadhana, and also in deeper teachings. So when the Vedas, rishis say that they have drunk the Soma, it's not about drinking some intoxicating liquor or herb. It is about opening the Sahasrar. And Shiva is also the deity of the nectar. He has his Soma form, his Shankara form, and he also, of course, has his Rudra form, his fierce form. And it's also interesting to note this also occurs in the Jyotish, or the Vedic astrology itself. There are two nakshatras connected to Rudra and Soma. Soma is Mrigashira, which represents the end of the connection, is connected to Orion in Western astrological or astronomical. And the other is Ardra. And these two are next to each other at the end of Taurus and Gemini, and mainly are connected with the Orion energy, again, with the Soma as Mrigashira, but Mriga is the head, and it's not the head of just the animal, although Shiva is connected to the deer. It is also the head, the Sahasrar, and then the Rudra form is connected to Ardra, and Ardra is also then connected to the sound and the cosmic energy overall. So we see how these factors are then connected. And we also, of course, have a using of Vedic mantras in Tantric sadhana, particularly Mrityunjaya mantra, but also the Gayatri and many other types of mantras. And we also have a connection with Ayurveda. Ayurveda has 3 doshas, which are Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And of course, Pitta is Agni, and the Kapha, the water principle, is Soma. And also the Vayu principle, the Prana, Shiva is also connected to that. And sometimes in Ayurveda, we also have the Surya principle, either as positive health or as also connected to Vayu, in the sense that we have the Jata Agni as the digestive fire for digesting the gross matter, and we have the Prana Agni for the Vayu, or the subtle energy, including the breath. So in that regard, Shiva is the personification of the Vedas. I discussed it in my book, Shiva, Lord of Yoga. And Ganapati Muni also connects Shiva with Prana. Prana not just as the breath, but Prana as the cosmic life energy, connected to Vayu as the universal Kriya Shakti, and also power of Shakti and power of the sun. He also connects it to light, Prakasha, including, of course, Prakasha is the original light, the pure light before all manifestation, out of which the Vimarsha, or the contemplation, arises. And then also to the, of course, the Purusha, or the principle of self-awareness and self-knowledge, and then to Pranava, primordial mantras, Omkara. Shiva is all the mantras. Shiva is the origin of mantra Omkara. To say that a deity that is Omkara is not connected to the Vedas only shows you how far these scholars have departed from reality, because they're caught up in semantics and psychology, their views of the world. They have no sadhana, as our previous speaker, I think, was saying. And so they're not able to go into the deeper teachings. Vedas are said to be Guha Vidya, or Guya Vidya, which is there's a secret teaching behind the teaching, the mantras. So unless one's inner eye and inner ear, drishti, shruti, are open, one cannot understand the mantras. And the mantras also have their inner or subtle forms. And these are also explained also in Upanishads, and also in later Tantric text as well. Now, of course, in the West, people are taking out the superficial meaning of tantras. Even in India, there's the looking more at rajasic and tamasic factors relative to Tantra. But the original Tantra is a manifestation of the Vakshakti, as we have in the Vedas. And that Vakshakti is generally used more through the Bija mantras, Om, Aim, Hrim, Klim, so on, main Bija mantras. And sometimes people draw a distinction between Veda and Tantra, and they say, but all these gods and goddesses are not so much in Vedas. But the point is, Vedas are reflecting nature as a whole. So Vedas are what they say, talked about Hiranmaya Purusha. That Hiranmaya Purusha is also, Aditya Purusha is Agni, Soma, Surya, all these deities of light, Vidyut. So the Vedic symbolism is naturalistic. The Tantra is often more the Shakti, Maya Devi, but even Shiva. So they have a more anthropomorphic form as based upon a different orientation of symbolism. But Shiva is not simply a male or a human being. Shiva is the cosmic power. If you look at the Shiva lingas, the mountain is a Shiva linga. We have the Agni linga. We have the Soma linga. We have the Surya linga. We have in South India lingas for all the 5 elements. The Akasha linga in Chidambaram is an open space. We have the linga as the subtle body. We have the buddhi as another form of the linga. We have all the 12 Jyotirlingas, or forms of light. We have Omkara. So it's this cosmic, expansive, dissolving, transformative energy that is there. And Devi or Shakti is honored or worshipped primarily in her form as Vidyut. Shakti is Vidyut, or lightning, which is also the power of light that vibrates in the infinite space. It is not just the ordinary lightning. It is also the lightning of the direct realization. Shakti also has her mantric form and her nada form, her akasha form. The space form of Kali is her dark blue form. The red form is more the fiery form. In the Dasha Mahavidya sadhana, you draw the energy of Tripura Bhairavi, the fiery force from the Muladhara, and you have the descent of the Soma force, the Tripura Sundari from above. Or sometimes it's even looked at, of course, that Shiva is the Sahasrar and Shakti is the Kundalini. All these different symbolisms can be found there. So we see an overall connection. And if we look to the inner essence, we discover something more. Shiva Shakti as universal forces. For example, one of the forms of the Shiva Linga I see quite a lot going into high mountain regions, like, of course, Kailas. You have a high mountain peak, which is the Shiva, and then below it forms a lake, which is the Shakti form. So these are the primary factors, and they can go on and on in many forms. Durga is also connected to the Shakti and the Veda and the Tantra forms. The Mahanarayan Upanishad, that is a very interesting text, because there you have the Shivopasana mantras. You also have the Durga Sukta, and these all connect back to the Vedic mantras and Vedic teachings. Durga Sukta is all Vedic mantras, and even the famous Ishopanishad, I always like to bring this out. The last verse in it, Agni Naya Supataraya Asman, is a verse from Agastya Rishi from Rig Veda. And I also like to draw out in the connection. They say there's no connection between yoga and Shakti and Tantra and Vedas via Patanjali. The last word in the Yoga Sutras is Shakti. Remember that. Swarupa Pratishta Chitti Shakti. That is how Yoga Sutra ends. The Chitti Shakti, or the Chit Shakti, resting in its own nature, is the Kaivalya. That is the Purusha resting in its own nature beyond the gunas. It is essentially the same definition as the Yoga Sutras begins, Tadadrashtu Sarupe Avastanam. Then the seer, the Purusha, rest in its own nature. So Tantric Yoga is also reflecting these connections. Even Ida and Pingala are Surya, Soma, Sun and Moon on another level. So we have all these connections of subtle energies to explore. And these are not just simply theoretical factors. They are not just simply philosophy. They are inner energies, just like Nada Bindu. Nada Bindu is also Shakti and Shiva. These are inner forces we realize or experience, inner light, inner sound. All the five senses, outer senses, are reflecting of five inner senses. They're cosmic forces, tattvas and tanmatras, and they all merge back into the Sushumna. And here I have an interesting way. There's a lot of misunderstanding relative to these Tantric yoga and Kundalini and the chakras. In this regard, we say all the chakras dwell in the Sahasrara. There are different vibratory rates of the same subtle energies going up. The Sahasrara dwells in the Hridaya, or the spiritual heart. I should say all the chakras also dwell in the Sushumna. Sushumna dwells in Hridaya. Hridaya dwells in the spiritual heart. Hridaya dwells in Atma. So it is all the manifestation of the Atma on various different levels. So we see a continuity, not just of ideas, but of sadhanas and practices, and even continuity of the same terms like Agni and Soma through the Tantric literature. For example, even the Bija mantra Hum is used to awaken the Agni and the Kundalini form. And one of the main mantras that we also use, I talk about this in my book on mantra yoga, for all these subtle energy, is the Param Jyoti mantra, the mantra to the supreme light, which is generally connected to Shiva, which is Om, Hrim, Hamsa, Soham, Swaha, Hamsa, Soham. Hamsa is the solar aspect of the prana. Soham is the soma aspect of the prana. These are also the vibrations of Atma, which is Aham in the higher sense of the term, the Aham Swarup as opposed to the Ahamkara. And here I would like to also address this idea that there's some fundamental difference between Advaita Vedanta and Tantra relative to the Shakti and all of that. There is a bit different language, but there is an essential teaching going on. Vedanta doesn't, what the Advaita Vedanta says, even Upanishads, the Jagad Mithya, the world is Mithya. Mithya doesn't mean false or unreal. It means an appearance. For example, everything we see is an appearance of name and form, but the underlying reality is Atman, Brahman. So when we say Jagan is Mithya, we also say Jagad is Brahman. Jiva is Brahman, Jiva Brahmeva, because you're looking beyond the appearance. Instead of looking at the waves, you see the ocean. But by saying that the ocean is more than the waves, you're not just denying the validity of the waves. So there is the creation, or we say manifestation, sustenance, dissolution of these three phases, but they all occur in eternity. It's very happy to see Modi discuss the Mahakal. Mahakal, Shiva is the Lord of eternity. Shakti is the time that arises. But time is not a line moving forward without beginning or end, just simply in one direction. It's not a progression. Time, in essence, is a wave on the sea. So every moment, all time is coming, arising from the eternal and entering into the eternal. So it's very important to study these teachings in a sadhana context, to go to great gurus like Ganapati Muni, who studied the mantras in great depth, and to find these tantric and Vedic connections throughout the Vedic literature, Yogini, Hridaya, Tantra, so many. Saundarya Lahari, as we know. And it's very important to look at that. Forget about all the, outer magical part of Tantra. That's not the deeper sadhana side of it. It has its place in various contexts. And also go to the depths of the Vedic mantra, which is the cosmic sound, Om Pranava, which is also the sound of Atma, sound of Akasha, unity of Atma, Akasha, Ananda, and Shakti, and the ultimate reality of Ananda is what is emphasized a bit more in the Tantra, but it is all connected, Veda and Tantra, and there is no need to put them against each other, but they have different visions, different depths, different perceptions over time, slightly different language and symbolism. Ganapati Muni also discusses the role of Ganesha in Vedas and in Tantra. And remember, all this basic Vedic chanting begins with Gananam Tva Ganapati Mavamahe. That is a mantra to Brahmanaspati from Rig Veda itself. Brahmanaspati, Brihaspati, Ganapati, in connections with Indra, he discusses that. So I know our time is a little bit limited here, and I don't want to take too much of it, but it's very important to do this type of sadhana-based research. And you will also see through the symbolism, Shiva Linga, Shakti Yoni, these are cosmic forms. We see them in many different levels, forms of the Pancha Mahabhutas, forms of the gunas. All these things are reflections of Shiva Shakti, Veda energy, and also mantra tantra, and of course the yantra. The Shri Yantra, the highest tantric teachings, is also Soma. It is also the moon, the Sahasrar. It is also Kailas, the abode of Shiva Shakti. It is also the entire universe. It is also the mantra Hrim, which is the Devi Pranava. So if we study that, practice that teaching, we can bring all these factors together within us, the different types of triangles, the ascending Agni, the descending Shakti, Agni, Soma, all of these are connected. So I urge you to do these sadhanas, study the great gurus. There are, of course, different types of Tantra, whether in Bengal, Himalayas, Kashmir, in the South India. They have slightly different languages, but they are very strongly connected on all levels. There is much more that could be said, but I wanted to open this dimension to you. You have probably explored it in other ways already, but we must honor and recognize this teaching. And again, 7 levels of Vak are mentioned in Vedas also, not just 4. And there are more than 7 chakras, there's 7 lokas. All of that, we have to have a yogi and a rishi vision to understand the mantra. It's not just a matter of reading philosophy and reading a book. The goal is the samadhi and beyond speech and mind, as of course goes back to Upanishads. We transcend mere words. We go back to the primal mantra that holds the potential of all language, in which sound and light is merged together into the pure consciousness over all, Satchidananda Shiva Shakti. So with these words, I will complete my talk here. Again, I've been very happy to be with you, and I look forward to your own unfoldment, your teachings, your impact on the future. If we can gain this knowledge, it's the cosmic mystery we are unfolding. It takes us through and beyond all the mysteries of cosmology, psychology together, and even to the cutting edge of modern science and modern medicine and beyond. Namaste, Hari Om.